Catus Maximus here. This is going to be a quick video. Ran into this at the junk store and thought this was interesting. No idea what set these came with, or this thing came with. It just says Chrome Vanadium Taiwan on it, but it is a spring-assisted universal joint. Most universal joints of this style and the impact ones do have friction in them, just to try to keep them from flopping around too much. But this one's a true spring-assisted one where they have this big external spring. It's really meant for it because they have these little undercuts on each part of it to capture the spring and to keep it from flopping around. So when you put a socket on it, you can kind of get that socket in place in an awkward situation, which is where you'd be using universal joint, but actually have it kind of have a little bit of rigidity so that you can actually, get it in there and not just have it flop over like many other universal joints. Well, what will happen with many other universal joints. Now, admittedly, some nice ones. Let's see, I've got an actual snap-on here. And the snap-on does have quite stiff friction in it. So we can put this on here. Of course, it has and on the snap-on, it's starting to slide down a little bit with all this weight, but admittedly, even with the snap-on, that one's a little bit less friction on that pivot there. But generally speaking, something like this one would work in those types of situations where you can kind of get it pre-angled or I'll stay straight and then you can get it onto the fastener. But I was noticing one kind of distinct advantage of this design is versus something like this, you're always having to work against that friction. So once you're starting to work with the fastener, these things just kind of work a little bit funky because you always have that extra friction. And that's what made me kind of attracted to this design here, is because you're using an external spring to provide that resistance. You don't have to have any friction on the pivots itself. So something like this turns very, very smoothly. And I thought, well, there's a lot of situations where that's actually going to be convenient because you get the kind of same advantages of having friction pivots, but at the same time have something that is super smooth operating. It's not the same as a constant velocity joint for impact, but you get because these won't bind up. But you do get the advantage of being able to work at steeper angles than 30 degrees, which is, of course, the big limitation here. And even though this spring does add just a bit of extra diameter, I just thought it was kind of a neat little idea on a universal joint, having it be spring-assisted. I've been looking around, and eventually I'll find some images and find some idea of who made this, because I'm sure there's going to be 1/4 inch and 3/8 versions, maybe even 3/4 inch. Kind of like to pick those up. But anyway, just wanted to share this with you. Just thought it was kind of a neat idea, something different to something on a universal joint, which is what has been considered essentially unchanged for, who knows, a century. Quick side note, forgot to mention, like I had these. These are a hex drive constant velocity universal joint, which are a lot more narrow than the traditional impact ones, but of course it suffers from the same issue that the impact is, which is it can only bend over that far, where one of these you can really get a steep angle on it. Anyway, really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.